going to cause less clipping, less limiting, less compression. You now end up with a louder and a cleaner signal. So yeah, when you look at everything all together and you don't cherry pick the individual components of what's going on, yes, a phase rotator is a great idea. Always.
I don't agree. I don't
Me
agree
either.
For the simple reason that, and for some people, it's a good idea. For other transmitters, it's not as good. And the case of the Class E transmitter would be a case in point, because you throw out the great peak power capability of it. And on my detectors, on my receivers, guys who run the higher peaks, the detector doesn't give a rat's ass about whether your average power is up or down. When you're detecting it, it cares about getting voltage, peak voltage, into that detector, create the demodulated waveform. And that's what you hear as loudness in a DX situation where the signal's weak. The guy with the more modulation is going to be way better than the guy with the higher average modulation. That's been my experience. Now, yours might differ, but it doesn't matter to me what you run, because everybody runs their own stuff. But I still feel that the rigs with the high peak positive modulation capability, like the Class E rigs, they sound better without the phase rotating. The audio sounds cleaner, clearer, and better to my ears. But, you know, who cares? Yeah, that's what makes a horse race, right? If everybody ran the same thing, we'd be in the CCP, and we're not.
But isn't asymmetry distortion?
Well, it is. Well, no. I mean, distortion is the difference between the input waveform and the output waveform. So technically, if Bear wanted to make a real case, he could say that a phase rotator adds distortion, but so do compressors and limiters and clippers. But Bear, let's forget the RF completely. Let's go before that. Let's get rid of the whole transmitting thing and look at it strictly from an audio amplifier standpoint. Real simple example. If you feed a symmetric waveform into an audio amplifier, so it's, let's say, simple numbers, plus 1 volt and minus 1 volt into an audio amplifier, you get a symmetric wave out, right? And that goes, let's say you now put it into a compressor. What's the compressor going to act on? It's going to act on 1 volt plus, 1 volt minus. So no matter what the cycle is, the detector is going to sense 1 volt, and it's going to adjust the level based on that. Now you feed that compressor, limiter, whatever have you, just some device that senses input at level and corrects for it to hold the level output, to hold the output level. So now you change that to a asymmetric waveform going in. So now we'll do 2 volts in the positive half, 1 volt in the negative half. What's the compressor or limiter or whatever going to act on? It's going to rectify that, and it's going to say, hey, 2 volts. It won't see the minus 1 volt part of the waveform, because the 2 volt one is what it's going to act on. It's going to act on the higher of the 2 amplitudes, of the positive or the negative part of the waveform. So if you have your voice and it's asymmetric and you go into a compressor, the compressor is going to act on the asymmetry, on the peak of that asymmetric wave, which means more gain reduction. And because compressors and limiters, no matter how fast they are, don't have an infinitely fast release time, you lose volume both on the average and on the peak, because it can't recover fast enough to make up for the difference in that waveform, because none of them act on a half cycle. So you know, this was figured out 50 years ago. This is why I find it a little irritating to be explained as. I mean, I do it because, okay, this is new to some people, but this stuff has been figured out decades ago. There's a reason why there isn't not one broadcast processor that's been made since the 1980s that does not have a phase rotator on it. And you got to ask yourself, why is every broadcast manufacturer including a phase rotator? There has got to be a reason. And I can go on all night about the reasons, because I've talked to Bob Orban, I've talked to Frank Fodi, the designer of the Omnia. There are reasons for using this, and they're very obvious. Broadcasters want to be competitive, they want to be loud, they want to be clean. Why in the world would ham radio operators not want to be loud and not want to be clean? I don't get that. And one BCG.
Yeah, but we don't
WTOS here.
We don't have that problem, and that's the difference. We don't have the limitation on the 100% or so. It can go over a little bit, I know, but we don't have that limitation that the broadcasters do. So we're comparing apples and oranges, and you're correct. If you have to work within FCC broadcast rules, then what you're saying makes sense. But we don't have to work within broadcast rules, and we could build a half-wave detecting compressor limiter pretty easily if we needed to, and we could fit everything in 99.9% on the negative and let the positives go up much higher if we wanted to. So it's apples and oranges. What's required for a broadcast station is very different than what we're doing here. So I disagree on that level. Now, you can run it like a broadcast station, and that's fine, but that's a completely different thing, and it's not necessary in ham radio. It's not necessary to run a compressor. You can, and then you have to deal with it. So then maybe you want a phase rotator. The whole idea behind the phase rotator is it runs it into a blender, and the plus and the minus ends up being the same. So, it's okay, but it's not necessary.
Okay, all of that also ignores a whole bunch of other stuff. It ignores the effect of an asymmetric transmitted waveform through propagation, reflection from the ionosphere when that scrambles things up. It has been proven, it's not my opinion, it's been proven that a highly asymmetrically modulated waveform, AM signal, will have more distortion on it than it would if it were symmetric. But let's forget that. Let's say everybody had a line of sight communication. Wow, we're overlooking a lot of stuff, aren't we? But yeah, let's just dismiss the ionosphere, because that's never an issue. Now you look at most detectors. Most detector circuits, unless you have a flex or you have synchronous AM and stuff like that, will not be able to handle a highly asymmetric waveform. So the reasoning for this goes on and on and on. And if you want to cherry pick that, we'll forget this and we'll forget that, and we don't need any, we don't need a symmetric waveform. You can do that, but if you look at everything all together, it's one reason after another. Oh, okay, let's forget the detectors. Let's say everyone had a flex, everyone had synchronous detection, no one's signal was reflected by the ionosphere. Let's just forget all of that. This is a hell of an assumption. Now let's look at component failure. So do you really want to take your plate modulated rig? Oh, but no one's got those right. And you want to do way over double the plate voltage on it, because you want to run 200% positive peaks. So instead of having a plate, resting carrier voltage of 1,000 volts, 2,000 volts on the plate for 100% modulation, you're going to do what? 4,000 volts? Does component failure mean anything? What about that Johnson Viking Valiant with that irreplaceable mod transformer? I don't get it. I don't understand why people would do this. As I said, there are a parade of reasons for not doing excessive asymmetry, and you guys seem to ignore all the ones you choose to ignore to make your point. It doesn't make any sense. N1 BCG.
No, Clark, you're still locked into the world of broadcast. All those studies about this and that have to do with broadcast stations being able to be heard reliably, and it's different. And as far as the detector distortion, yet to run into it. I've got an R388 here. I've got GPR 90. I've got several R390As. They have normal detectors, and Steve and Bob, they run regularly way over 125. We're not talking 200% positive. The Class E rigs run quite a bit, maybe 130, 140% at times positive. I'm not hearing anything at all that I could point to as being distortion. I don't know. Maybe there would be distortion if there were if people were playing music and we're listening on a high-fidelity AM receiver. I don't know. But we're not. It doesn't work that way on ham radio. And if you listen to guys with a big carrier and limiting and compression and DX, guys coming in from 8 and 9 land, the guys who are running that compression and control and the phase rotators, they're hard to hear at distance. The guys who aren't hard to hear are the guys who have, big positive peaks on their modulation envelope. They're heard very well. So, you might blow up a mod transformer if you go too hard, but, who cares? So get another one. If you're worrying about that type of thing, you drive a Lexus, which is fine. It's a nice car. But if you want to drive around in a Dodge Viper, you got to figure that you want a little more performance. You're not worried that much that if something goes wrong, you're not going to fix it. So, it's fine. It's fine. I mean, I'm watching your waveform. You go negative very well. You've got a lot of density and very few positive peaks. I can see it. Nothing wrong with that. You sound great, Clark. You always sound great. So, there you go. There's no reason not to run a lot of positive modulation if your radio is designed for it. If your radio's not designed for it, then don't. If you want to run a phase rotator, run a phase rotator, compressor limiter, and all that stuff. It's fun. I mean, it's great. But it's none of that's really true for our situation here. Broadcast is a different animal. Requirements are different. The studies are different. And because they're aiming at different goals. That's what I have to say. WB2GCR, and I'm getting off the soapbox. That's it. No more. I am not a crook.
I agree about the piss weak signals being heard running a lot of modulation, whereas if they weren't, they wouldn't be. I agree with that.
Zippity-doo.
Bear. Peak energy, by definition, does not contain useful energy. It's short order. I mean, math tells you this. Again, this is not an opinion of mine. The fact is that peaks are short duration. They'll show up on a PEP meter, but they don't contain any meaningful volume to them. All they do is they show up on a peak reading meter. So when you say someone sounds loud, it's not because they're modulating 200% positive. It's because they have a very high average level of modulation. That's what you hear, not the peaks. If you clipped off the peaks, if you literally took a signal, let's say you took an AM signal where someone only had a negative peak clipper, limiter, whatever the hell you want to call it, and so their negative peaks their negative waveform was stopped one way or the limited, clipped, whatever, at minus 99%, and the positive excursions were allowed to go to whatever. Let's say they kicked up to 200% positive, so double an asymmetric or double a symmetric wave. You would hear the level of that station. Now, if you took a positive clipper, for example, and you cut everything above 100% modulation off, okay, you just lobbed it off. Now, that peak reading meter would go from positive 200 to positive 100. Do you realize that you would hear no drop in volume, no drop whatsoever in perceived volume at the listening end? None, because the peaks you're cutting off don't contain any energy. All they do is they show up as spikes, voltage spikes, that contribute to nothing. This is what my argument is you don't need the positive peaks because they don't do anything for your volume. That's what I'm saying.
You're wrong very easily.
Can you hear me now?
Experiment and do it at in the noise. This signal needs to be in the noise, barely there, and then try it both ways and tell me if there's a difference.
No, Bill. Stand by, Bill. Okay, we can test this in ultra simple way. There's two types of radios that currently exist that are commercially available and sold that conform exactly to your case of having no positive peaks and only going negative. The first one is your basic overloaded carrier too high screen modulated transmitter. It will only go negative. The other one is your basic rice box on AM that is the carrier set up too high that will only go negative. And you know what that sounds like? It sounds like doggy poop. Doggy poop. Total doggy poop. Anyway, You're wrong about the detector. The detector is a voltage detector, not a current detector. And if you pass more voltage through the detector, it gives you more voltage out. And that's why it sounds better. And the fact that it's short duration just means it's high frequencies. Doesn't mean anything else. So transmitting with more positive peaks generally, until you start really distorting the detector, generally sounds more better on ham radio. Now, how it would sound on broadcast, I don't know. But it's pretty easy to do the test. I mean, you could set up a radio comparison pretty easily. Every time you hear someone with a screen modulated radio that's overloaded and they can only drive it negative, you can hear that exact case you say sounds just fine and it don't.
Neither of those arguments are realistic. First, you argued screen modulated rigs. You're talking about modulating downwards. You're talking about half cycles of modulation. That is not a fair comparison. And in fact, it doesn't even make sense. And the second thing that doesn't make sense is you said the detectors are voltage detectors, not current detectors. That part was correct. What you didn't go on to say is that we're not talking about total voltage, we're talking about asymmetric waveforms, that the receiver detectors, you said, will handle more voltage or less voltage, and the more voltage, the more level. I'm not arguing that. I'm saying an asymmetric waveform in a detector will have a detrimental effect compared to a symmetric waveform, because, as you also know, detectors and receivers are biased into their linear range. So what happens if that linear range is exceeded in one direction? You get distortion. So basically, you can either run symmetric audio and it'll sound clean, or you can run asymmetric and someone's detector is going to clip it off for you, and that's where the distortion comes in. I don't know. I really don't know why we're having this discussion, because I don't see where the logical argument is against what I'm saying.
Hey, Clark.
Yes.
Signals.
W2JBL. Good evening, all. Good afternoon. Do you have a VU meter on your receiver, Clark?
No.
Okay, then you're going to have to trust your ears. This is 100% positive, okay? This is 100% positive, about 80% negative. Now take note of my volume level here, and now we're up around 250% positive. Do you notice I sound louder?
How did you do that?
Oh, with a screen modulated ARC 5.
Right, because you increased your average level of modulation. It has nothing to do with the peaks.
Well, I don't go by PEP, peak reading watt meters, peak reading modulation meters, or anything of the sort, average, in my world. But I first did this watching the VU meter on my R390A. It's close to, I'd have to do it a little bit more scientifically, but by that crappy VU meter, the 200% modulation is worth almost 6 dB of loudness, whether you want to call it peak or average. It's huge. And, I operate mobile a lot, and I'll tell you, from experience, a lot of it, that when signals are in the mud, and I got a guy with an Optimod, and he's 100% positive and 96% negative, and his 3 bands of clipping and this and that and the other thing. Maybe he's even a little heavy on the low end. And he's just barely quieting the receiver. That guy is unreadable. Somebody like Ted comes on with the huge audio, same carrier strength, Q5.
That's correct, because what's happening there is you increase your drive to the clipper, so you cut off your negative half of your cycle dramatically, and the Optimods won't do that. But that's how you're getting, you're increasing your average modulation. It has nothing to do with peaks. You're doing that by causing 50% clipping on the negative peaks, and that's how you're getting the positive peaks.
No, I'm not clipping the negative peaks. This is my natural voice. I don't run any kind of clipping.
Well, then there would be no way other than clipping to go from plus 100% to plus 200% and not change the negative peaks also.
No, you're claiming, Clark, is that the duty cycle is being increased on the negative side, and that's not necessarily the case. And I'll tell you what, even if it is, even if the duty cycle is being increased because of the idea that you're clipping on the negative and allowing the positive to go through, which we could buy, okay, it would imply that there's more density on the positive, we're just letting the peaks pass. So what?
Well, let me try this too, because right now I've got 170% mod. Let me turn it down to 100% mod right here. Alright. There you go. That's 100% modulation out of the transmitter. And we'll take note of how loud that is. Hold on. Let me turn it back up to where I had it before, about 170. Alright. Is that any louder right there?
Well, it's louder because there's more difference between you're modulating the carrier more fully in the negative. I can see it on the scope compared to where you kept it at 100. You're not fully modulating it. What Clark is arguing for is this. Okay, I'll explain this. Clark is saying, I think, that if you modulate it essentially the same way we're talking about when we go with high positive peak, without using the positive peak, using the compressor, the phase rotator, and the limiter to get the density within the 100% or so positive and negative modulation, then you sound louder.
What I interjected was that, and again, my experience, the guy with the symmetrical modulation and the Optimod, when his signal is only, maybe 10 dB signal-to-noise ratio or weaker, that guy is unreadable versus the guy with the big audio. It's huge. You experience it when you're mobile, but you get on this band too, like these 4-laners that opened up underneath us, most of whom have terrible audio. They're unreadable unless they're 20 over.
Chris, you're right. But the thing is if you took that guy who's now running 200% positive peaks and is so much louder than the guy with the Optimod, if you put a diode clipper on there and cut his positive peaks down so that he's only positive 100% instead of, whatever, 170, 180, 200, the volume would not change. All of a sudden his peaks go to half what they were before, and his volume doesn't change at all. This is a point which I think is very important for people to consider.
Yeah, hang on. His volume doesn't change. Exactly. The guy that Chris is talking about, who's running the Optimod, is doing exactly that, but his readability changes. That's the point. Yes, his loudness doesn't change if you can read him. But if you can't read him, you can't hear him. And the guy running the big modulation is more audible. Now, you could argue all day about what the reason is, but I hear it all the time. All the time. I mean, it's extremely obvious.
Me too.
I'll give you an example. I'll name names and call signs. KG2IR. If he isn't 20 dB full quieting in my mobile, let's say he's only S6 or S7, maybe a 15 dB signal-to-noise ratio, he's in the mud. He's utterly unreadable unless he's dead full quieting.
Nick runs his station extremely conservatively. I don't even think he reaches 100% modulation.
Who?
He runs at about 60 to 70% in a fat carrier.
He does lowball it a little bit, but even when he gets close to the mic, and he does hit 100%, in any kind of a bad signal-to-noise ratio, him and many others are just unreadable. I would spend a lot more time mobile if there were more people on here that actually knew how to put some audio on the carrier, so I could hear them.
Did you say Nick Clark?
I did.
Yeah, Nick, I love Nick, but his signal is only good when his carrier's strong. If his carrier's weak, you can't hear diddly squat. And I watch him on the receive here all the time. Nick likes to run it like that. He's a fan of running his rig that way. And he's really hard to hear if the conditions are not good. Really is. And he's got all the audio gear you can think about. Get this project going.
Speaking of conditions, what's with these guys?
They claim they don't. I'm warming up the Johnson desk. They claim they don't hear us. They have a net, whatever night this is, And it's just, damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. It's those damn Yankees. They don't care. These guys don't care.
Yeah, I got to roll out for about half an hour, guys. This is fun, Clark. Don't even worry about it. I mean, it's cool. It's cool. Everybody's got to run their thing their way. That's the thing. That's the thing. Everybody should have one rig with the full bore, optimods, phase rotators, compressor limiters, harmonizers, all that good stuff.
Harmonizers.
Everybody should have it. That way you can run whatever you brung. But it's fun. It's fun. There's two different schools of thought. It's great. It's great to have these types of discussions. I'll catch you guys in a bit. I'm on BCG in the group WB2GCR, modulating over 100%.
Just get some processing in there, and you'll be golden there, Bear. 7.3s, catch you later. Clark, I think I've tried to make this point before. It's ham radio. It's not broadcasting, and we're communicating here. And the idea is to be effective. So there's a balance that I've tried to strike over the years between broadcast and communications in an effort to be loud, in an effort to be heard. I don't care about the distortion in the diode detectors in a lot of these receivers. Shit, we all grew up listening to that distortion on WABC and whatever else. So we're all used to it, and I could care less if there's a little bit of that in there, as long as I can hear the person I'm talking to.
That's right. Positive peaks are effective.
See you, Bear, W3MMR.
Yeah, well, that's what my mentor, Uncle Bill Nagel, taught me back when I was 15 years old. Positive peaks are effective. No, regardless of how you measure them or your philosophical value. It works.
Peaks, then I hear them. I talk to them. But if they keep it, if they don't, like you said, with the same carrier, I can't talk to them.
Okay.
Okay.
And they both have 100% negative modulation.
There you go. Then everything's perfect.
I think with perfect time to play. There, Clark.
Yeah, right?
Oh, God. Hi, Tom. I forgot about the hum you beat me up over last night. I was just going to go and put that rig back on. Yeah, hard love, that's all. Very interesting. I've been listening for a good 40 minutes or so, and very interesting debate. Been looking forward to seeing it. I look at it like this: you put a phase rotator in, and it's basically a building block. You can take other things and change it around. You got either symmetrical audio or you got asymmetrical audio to work with, and it's going to have an effect on your compressors and different things you're playing with. So, but interesting. I'm not running a phase rotator now. I was over a few days ago, but I think I need a little more work. Hi to Billy, Chris, of course Clark, and I think Brian's in there. Got the 41000 on here. This is the street sweeper. Any fours come in here. So I'll be listening. K1JJ.
50 over, Tom. W3MMR.
Thank you.
Hey, Tom. You sounding good on that rig. Whoa, New Jersey. I need to fix my foot pedal again. Got a loose connection in there somewhere.
Tree video.
Hey, Billy the Kid. Yeah, you're sounding good here too. I was impressed when you said your audio is up as high as it is. I think you said 160 or something. Yep, I'm running about 140% here. Pair of 4x1s modulated by a pair, and playing with the audio a little. I think I've got it pretty close. I think I'm gonna run. I want kind of a natural sound, almost like FM radio. Not a lot of low end, more of a natural sound. That's what I've been shooting for, and I think I'm getting there. looking at the bandwidth's about 6. So a lot of little changes over the last month here. A lot of little changes.
If you want a natural sound, you need to add a fig leaf.
yeah, that you don't maybe I've got one on and you don't realize.
And that's what's keeping us all in QSO.
Yeah, well, figured I'd come in and sweep the floor a little bit here and clean up all the debris. But yeah, I love these spirited debates. I mean, it really was a good technical debate. I hope somebody recorded it because it was very cool.
I think it's all on AM phone.
Everything's on AM phone. CQ.
Actually, I think Toby's live streaming it on YouTube, so as long as he saves the live stream and uploads it to his YouTube channel, it should be there forever.
That's great. So anyone thinking about getting into ham radio can say, boy, these guys are really at each other's throats. I don't want to do that.
Yeah, like Channel 19. Hey, there's a trucker over there, Mom.
Clark, I'm literally running a phase rotator right now.
Well, I've got a medal for you.
Well, I thought you were running the phase blaster.
No, that's when I turn them both on like this. There you go. Now I'm running the phase blaster.
I always run one 340 hertz and 4 stages.
I want an amplifier by Dave.
Everybody needs an amplifier
Dave
by
made.
Dave.
And that's Dave the Ape Man, of course.
You know, we're all talking about the same Dave. I rave about that guy. I find him to be one of the most generous, kind, considerate, peaceful individuals I've actually never talked to on the air.
Oh yeah, Dave is one of the smartest guys. Common sense.
Yeah, he doesn't get. He's a hell of an RF engineer. That guy. He's on another level.
Here's a fun story because we need a pleasant one. My first experience with Dave was years ago, or as Tim would say, a long time ago. Where I was talking about how hard it was to find certain kinds of diodes, germanium diodes, for a project that I was working on, and a couple of days later in the mail, this bubble wrap package showed up, and I'm looking at the return address, like, who is this? And I zip it open, and it's 5 anti-static bags, and each of them had 5 diodes, all of different kinds in it, all the exact what I was talking about, and then 4 others with a little note that said, here's a few you can try. And I emailed him, and I said, oh my God, this is amazing. And he said, well, I heard you talking on the air about how hard it was for you to find these diodes, and I had them, so I just sent them off. That's just amazing. I mean, to him maybe it was just, pull out a couple of diodes from the parts stores. But to me, that's someone who took a lot of time to do that. And maybe it wasn't a big deal to him, but to me it is a big deal. And if you want proof, I'm talking about it 6 years later. N1 BCG.
He's a cool guy. I've been down and seen his operation and stuff. I was trying to get in touch with him to... He built like this IQ modulated exciter, and I think that's really cool. It's like analog. He's just using, mixers and a local oscillator, and the IQ signals I feel like are just audio signals, and he's mixing them and making all kinds of different modes, just with like off-the-shelf little mixer ICs and stuff. And I wanted to talk to him about that because I want to make one of those. It's so cool. It makes like perfect AM. It makes sideband, double sideband, independent sideband, all different, any mode you can think of.
Oh, I have a Central Electronics 28 that does that. Was made in 1950. So it doesn't do ISB. That's the only thing that's missing.
how cool is ISB, man? Like, see, Clark, that's what you need. You have two phones, two microphones, and you can have one in your upper sideband and one in your lower sideband with two different audio signals.
Well, that's called Con AM stereo, and it was clearly the superior mode which lost out to corporate greed. But if you guys are up for Sequam, I've got a Motorola Sequam exciter in my kitchen. This is why it's a damn good thing I'm not married. So I could go on Sequam stereo, but you guys probably don't have Sequam receivers.
I don't know anybody that does. I've never seen one. I had a Technical Material Corporation SB1 or SBE1 military sideband exciter. Alan Wiener's using one up at BCQ on as an exciter in one of his transmitters, and that did ISB, and it was phasing sideband, and very wide frequency response for sideband. It was like out to 5,000 cycles, and I was playing with whatever you call that, the independent sideband stereo. Never had it on the air, had it in the shop, and that was cool.
It is cool.
Or like,
you
could have,
do it.
This is what it was designed for.
Lack of
different program
appropriate content
on opposite sidebands.
So
they could be running RTTY on one sideband and quad multiplex data on the other sideband, or voice, and mix and match, and never the two shall meet. So like Clark could have content-rich CQ programming on one sideband, and hello there, and the phone calls on the other, going at the same time.
Yes, you'd have to listen to the left channel to get a normal QSO out of me, and I'll broker out the right channel for Portuguese books on tape.
There you go. Or recordings of Herb.
Don't forget some subcarrier elevator music.
That's right. I'll run Muzak of your life on the right channel. Maybe I'll just put that on one of the subcarriers. I could really broker this bastard out.
There you go. Hey, Tom, do I still have the 60 cycle hump?
Let me get on the other receiver and listen.
There's a little bit of conducted noise from a transformer in here, but I'll turn the gain down. I hear and see a little bit of 120 on there.
Yeah, you did a good job. It's about gone. Just a tiny little touch of something in there, as you said.
I think it was being picked up by the line to mic transformer at the end of my little STL, 75 feet of Cat 5 that goes downstairs. And I moved the transformer around. It might have been picking up a magnetic field, and I turned down the gain on the 32V that I use for an exciter. Well, that was a good catch, because I could barely hear it here. Nor could I see it on the scope, so it must have been prominent last night if I was fading or something.
Yeah, we are 40 over 9 now, so if it was there, it would be there. So, I'll tell you, nothing more annoying than hum. I'll tell you, man, I had a bout with it. You know what I did? I finally put a transformer. I took one of the old Class E 220 to 220 isolation transformers. I think weighs 100 pounds. And I said, that's it. I'll just use it as an isolation transformer for all my audio. I've got like 10 plugs of audio gear going into it. And it was gone. 60 cycle hum was gone. Didn't have to do any screwing around with the cables or grounding. Just an isolation. That did the trick. So if anyone ever runs into that again and can't solve it, the old isolation transformer trick does the job.
I'll remember that. I did something that Nick suggested in a couple of my stations when I had issues like this. Nick always says lift the ground, and he's right most of the time. On the XLR connector, just lift the ground.
I haven't messed with audio hums, but just to isolate myself, I just put a step-down transformer in the shack. So like anything that ran off 110 is now working off this 240 to 120 step-down transformer, so that, I don't use a neutral back to the panel. I derive my own neutral here just for everything in the shack. and it just pulls from the panel completely balanced. I'm isolated from the pole pig, and this thing, it's like 5 kVA, so I should be able to get about 40 amps worth of like power and stuff at 120 volts off this thing. Pretty superior. It gets a little bit warm, so I unplug it at night.
Man, those things are expensive. I've looked at them. Well, that's kind of what Tom was saying before, with his isolation transformer. I guess you can power the whole shack with that. And, I like transformers. They don't pass RF, and they get rid of all sorts of unsightly stuff that comes down the line.
Yeah, and getting rid of that neutral, I'm on a neutral with everything else in the house. Screw that, just pull a balance load and stick a transformer there, and then make your own damn neutral and isolate it. That was the plan. That's why I did it.
This transmitter is 220 balanced. It's 2 legs and ground. There's no neutral. And when you put it into the low power position, it takes the plate iron from L1 and L2 to L1 and ground. I haven't run it like that. I don't think I'm gonna. I could see the lights getting dim in one side of the house and bright in the other if I did crap like that.
Yeah, you gotta get rid of all that crap. 240 volts. The way they do it in Europe, everything is balanced. There's no imbalance. They don't even need a neutral, That's I'm sort of doing it here now.
Yeah, I used to work with a Romanian guy. He'd worked for the power company in Romania, and he left where I was working. And he went to work for Con Ed, and they sent him to school. They were sending him electrical engineering courses, this and that. And I used to run into him after he went to work for Con Ed. He says, "You people are insane with your unbalanced current in this country." And I'm inclined to agree.
It is kind of insane, man. Like, you lose your neutral leg? What? Hello?
Yeah, my neighbor's a chief on the local fire department, and he told me about the house not too far from here where lightning strike, neutral opened, there was heavy electrical demand, and, well, they saved most of the chimney.
I'm telling you, man. So, yeah, screw all that stuff. I got a step-down transformer, and we're sitting pretty.
I looked at those things for something a couple of years ago, and prices were astronomical, so I didn't go there.
Yeah, well, thank you, National Broadcasting Corporation. You've contributed to the success of my ham radio operation, W2BTK.
And Larkan.
W2JBL.
I'd like to. Yeah, thank you to NBC, Larkan, Comark, and various other, piles of junk from Dave's house.
Imagine how surprised they'd be if you send them a nice note.
Who is Larkan?
They make, like, TV transmitters and stuff.
Oh, okay.
Part 73 junk.
Yeah, Jedi.
Billy's got a little bit of peacock running around his shack.
Oh, yeah? I'm going to top that. And I have pictures. I think I still have the video. A year and a half ago, I was just starting to move out of my house in Carmel, New York, and look out the window of my modest backyard and a little patch of woods behind the house. And, man, there's a funny-looking yard bird in my backyard. And went out, and there's a goddamn peacock. With the plumage and the tail and the blue feathers and the whole nine. Glorious bird. Walking around my backyard. Then he walks over into the abandoned community center next door. And I'm looking at him, I'm videoing him. All of a sudden, these two guys in a pickup truck with nets come flying up, running up to the bird. The bird takes off and gets himself up on the roof of the abandoned community center, and they farted around for a good half an hour trying to get the bird to come down. The guy lived down the road from me, as it turned out, and he raises them. And that bird was on the loose for almost a month before somebody finally rounded it up.
Who was it, Fred Silverman?
No, some guy with a an old farmhouse, bunch of vehicles, and a race car in his front yard.
All right, inside joke there. And one BCG.
It was a, what do they call him? Oh, he was a redneck.
Hey!
Oh no, that's complimentary. That's complimentary. I'll fine tune it a little bit. He was a local. I don't have a problem with, rednecks as in country folk. That's fine. I don't mean that never mean that as a derogatory term.
I'm just busting with.
I know. We're both of us are rednecks, for God's sake.
Well, everyone makes fun of a redneck until your car breaks down. Good evening, KD2 AFV.
I'm kind of like creamy beige. Good evening, W2PHO.
And hello to Creamy G, too.
What? Dude, Creamy G is officially back.
No, that's Mr. Softy. Creamy G is on the house here.
Yeah, well, he can, he's like, my official, I don't know what you would call it, but he's like my sponsor.
I just don't think you should promote the fact that you worship Mr. Softy.
I never met a woman that worshipped Mr. Softy.
Well, it's all that Perry talks about. Mr. Softy this, Mr. Softy that. It just,
They seem to be more interested in the fact that I'm the total opposite of Mr. Softy.
Hey, who would win in a fight? Mr. Softy or the Blue Bunny?
Mr. Softy.
This is way over my head.
Last summer, when I was unemployed for a few months, Mr. Softy, the ice cream truck, comes through my neighborhood every day. Well, he came through my neighborhood every day around 4:30, between 4 o'clock and 4:30 every afternoon. And it was a daily thing that I'd be sitting here on the radio, me, Clark, Billy, Phil, Rob, and whomever else, and every day, I'll be right back, Mr. Softy's here. And I got my Mr. Softy ice cream every day. And then Creamy G became my nickname because of Mr. Softy ice cream cones.
Okay, thank you for explaining that, because I've been scratching my head over this for a year.
He would hip check kids out of the way in order to get his ice cream first.
Oh, he would wait in the corner for me. He would wait for me to come out. He'd put the jingle on right at my corner and wait for me to come out of the house, get my wallet, come out of the house. Then I'd run down there, and there'd usually be maybe one little pipsqueak in line, and he'd see me coming and move out of my way, and he'd already have the cone ready to go for me and at the window.
Did he give you extra sprinkles?
Daryl, I got extra Jimmys every time. Every time.
You got extra sprinkles?
Every time.
And a cherry on top?
No cherries, the chocolate cone with chocolate sprinkles every time.
You're a good part of his forecasted budget for this summer. I hope you're prepared.
Oh, I just saw him for the first time today. He drove by the shop today. I heard him coming, so I took out my phone, and I took a video. I sent Clark, Billy, and Blaine a video.
That sounds so good. I wish I could still eat ice cream.
Keep in mind that Creamy G is actually short for creamy goodness.
That's all we can do. We're on the 20
Yeah, I'm more lactose intolerant than I was when I was a child, and ice cream, well, give me an ice cream cone, and I'll give it back to you in about 15 minutes.
I thought it stood for creamy genitals.
Oh!
No, in fact, Billy, you're the one who changed it from creamy goodness to creamy G.
Yeah, I remember that, but still, I didn't know that it meant goodness.
Everything you do. And good evening to everyone that's on the net tonight. Bob up in Columbia.
Brown bonnet with vanilla ice cream.
Boy, it seems like it would be so easy to check into this net.
I gotta go check my frequency. I'll be back.
WX4AM, Andy, go ahead. Here's K3JWI.
Yeah, I got it. We're using the damn frequency, buddy.
power of suggestion. I am completely jonesing for some ice cream right now. Holy moly.
Is that amazing how little it takes?
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't forget the sprinkles. And glad to be hearing some good signals actually up here in big metropolis of Dawsonville.
You know what's really good? Carvel birthday cake. It's vanilla chocolate, and then it's got the chocolate crunch in the middle.
If he is, Roy, we miss you, so miss that good signal. But other than that,
oh, that's better. No, I'm on frequency.
File again tomorrow. Hopefully, we'll be back in here Thursday night. So look forward to it.
Here's a hypothetical technical question. Clark, I'll bounce this off of you or Tom if you're there, or Phil. Hey, guys. Right now, I'm running this transmitter in my finished basement. It's nice. And this, and that, and the other thing, it's out of my way. And I got 75 feet of Cat 5 going down to a control pair and an audio pair. But I just had to run all the way down there and back to change frequencies. So I'm wondering if I could get away with running 75 feet of like RG213 or 142, double shielded, real coax. And run my RF drive downstairs from an exciter up here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, in theory, yes, as long as nothing, no stray RF gets back into the input of the amplifier.
Well, you would definitely want to have a donut ferrite or something like that on each end, just to play it safe.
I can handle that. My antenna is impeccably balanced, so there's very little RF in here, but I may just try that.
Well, I mean, if you've got a good match, I mean, the coax is basically, if you have a proper standing wave, it's very resistant to external RF, just as twin lead is. So, yeah, it should work fine.
Well, the Johnson Kilowatt is it's a grid-driven amplifier, so it's got a tuned grid circuit, and it's very easy to... Well, minimum SWR occurs at maximum grid current. It's a very well-neutralized amp. And, maybe I'll try that. I'll shoot RF drive down from the ICOM.
But if it were down there, how would you monitor it or make tuning changes?
Oh, once it's tuned, it's tuned. I haven't had to touch this thing at all. I might put a camera down there, but I've got a watt meter up here and a scope, and I'm monitoring, so I pretty well know what's going on.
Boy, that's like Brian's setup with a broadcast transmitter in his basement and his shack upstairs.
Exactly, that's what inspired me.
Brian, you're inspirational.
All right, guys, it's been fun with the hockey games on. We'll catch you guys tomorrow. It's been a blast, and I'm going down to the corner store to get good ice cream, by the way. There'll be 3 of them.
Hockey? You mean guys clubbing each over the head, fighting is more exciting than this? I don't understand that.
It's the same thing.
Yes!
Wow, I haven't met a hockey fan in years, so that's great. I know one now.
I love it. Alright, guys, catch you later. Flyers and the Bruins. The hottest team in the NHL versus the best team in the NHL. It's going to be a good game. Catch you in the W3
There's Mr. Softy. Oh, God. There's a friend of mine used to live in, the one neighborhood, industrial type neighborhood where I worked. Mr. Softy used to come through, every afternoon with that damn music, and it irritated some people. I'm working on this guy's truck one time, and Mr. Softy comes by with the music, and it was cranked, and the customer turns to me and says, "Damn it, if I was back in Iraq, I'd put a Lost rocket through that effing truck."
Hey, if you ever want to get Perry off the frequency, just, light up the Mr. Frosty or Mr. Softy chimes, and he's gone. It's like a Pavlovian response.
A lot of it's my fault. I need to get the coax out the window, out the side of the house.
Running down the street. "Stop, mister, I got a nickel!"
You know, and he takes it in such a good nature. You know, it's like he's fine with the whole thing. I think it's healthy youth. See that? Perry's still in touch with his ultra young youth.
Well, he's better off probably with ice cream than he would be with beer anyway. So.
So I'll be listening for your phone call.
I remember when John W2WDX was on the air, and this was right when all this stuff was beginning, and Perry was explaining all this stuff, and how did it come up? John was asking Perry, it's like, what is it about this ice cream that you just go on and on and on about? It's like you just like it so much. What's the big deal? And Perry said, it's the creamy goodness. And John keys up and he goes, creamy goodness. And I said, you know what? That sounds like a porn name. And then Bill keyed up and he goes, no, you got to modernize it. It can't be creamy goodness. You got to abbreviate it. Make it like Creamy G. And then that became his like rap name. So then that's how Perry became Creamy G. So you see, now you know the whole story. And one BCG.
God, well, John, W2JBL, well, John knows about creamy goodness. He was a sound man and a roadie. And those guys had to pre-screen the groupies before they let them backstage.
Oh, well, see, now you know the rest of the story.
There is some guy in there, I kid you not, during your last slightly longer transmission, Clark, you transmitted about 30 seconds, some guy in there drifted a full kilohertz worth of heterodyne in the length of your transmission.
You know, I was going to make a comment about the nets on 3880, but I had it out with Roger last night, and I'm feeling mellow about everything now.
Roger ain't going to change his ways. He's even more of a belligerent drunk than I am.
I'm so tired of the fights. And I was I was ready to give up. He got on. Actually, it was funny because I gotta give him credit. He actually waited. Well, he didn't totally wait, but he keyed up, and I said the frequency was in use. This is late last night, and then we all kind of signed. And then right after that, he got on. He was talking to his friend, and it's like, that's fine. All right. So he waited, and he went away when I said the frequency was in use. So everything was fine. And I'm just putting my hand on the transmitter switch to shut it off, and he goes, well, you know, those guys who are on here since 5 o'clock in the afternoon think they own the frequency. And it's like, oh, that's it. I can't resist a good taunt. And I put the transmitter back on, and I confronted him on it. But, you know, we had what I think was a productive talk, and I still think that there's a lot of differences, but you know what? I'm so worn down from this. I'm so worn down from this friction. So I just, hey, listen, you know what? We're somehow going to have to make this work out. Just somehow this is going to have to work out. So let's just figure that out.
Yep, I got to go. I'm meeting George, and that's not George in Queens. It's George N2LJO that I've been working on 6 meters. Got to go meet him on 6. The sched's at 7:30. But, well, Roger's a work in progress. I'm afraid he's not going to change, though. He's as stubborn as I am or more. I only have to. He's a nice guy. We have a lot in common. There's only two things. One, please stay more than 5 kilohertz away from me. He understands that now. And, two, turn the damn audio down and get a scope. His scope is broken. I'm tempted to send him one. That, I got a scoop, 50.150 upper sideband if anybody wants to point their beam at Hopewell Junction, New York, or Yorktown Heights, New York. Catch you all later, W2JBL.
Send him a scope. Now, that would be funny. Wow, so you're the guy who uses 6 meters. I was trying to figure that out, who uses the mystery band. All right, Chris, 7-3, enjoy your sked. You got 2 minutes, just under. Oh my God, ham radio, yowza.
Oh, it's absolutely marvelous up there, Clark. You should try it. Well, there's hardly anybody to talk to, but it's dead quiet. There's no interference. We're on sideband, but we're working our way towards AM. It's just a really nice, quiet place to hang out. And I can run my vintage slop bucket gear. See you later. W2JBL. That was not forced.
This is almost surreal. Yeah, I am in, no, and Chris, I don't expect you to listen to this transmission because now you have less than 1 minute. But just for everybody else who's not remaining, yeah, the reason I refer to 6 meters as the mysterious or mystery band, yeah, they call it the magic band. I call it the mystery band because it's like, what's the appeal of this? It's this the weird band, sort of. It is in VHF, but it's like VHF low, and it's not HF. It's not like 2 meters. It's sort of like there. It's got wacky characteristics that are sort of a hybrid between CB and 2 meters, and the only 6 meter DX I ever did in my life when I was very young growing up watching Channel 2 on Saturday mornings, the cartoon Scooby-Doo and stuff like that. And other stations in Philadelphia would come skipping in. And I was wondering, how the hell is that, or Boston, you know, from other major markets, and they would override my TV programs. And this was always in the spring and the fall. I didn't understand why it was then, because it didn't, you know, you're 8 years old, 10 years old, you don't understand that stuff. But that was the extent of my 6 meter work. And so now, when I talked to Bob Allison, especially when we're up in Newington, and he's a huge 6 meter proponent. He loved 6 meters. He even offered me lunch boxes, Heathkit lunch boxes. He goes, hey, how about you and Rob, N1ALF? I'll give you each a Heathkit lunch box, and you guys can talk to each other on 6 meters. Now, that was a nice offer. But I was a jerk. I just looked at him like, the mystery band? He said, oh, yeah, it's really great. So every time he talks excitedly about the mystery band, I always give him a raft of BS and say, oh wow, so you're going to be on 6 meters. Well, that's good. So now someone's using it. That's important because you've got to show usage in order to keep the bands. But you know, it's good to see people using 6 meters. Isn't that weird? But anyway, it's good to see people using 6 meters for whatever it's worth. And one BCG. Oh, and I did have one QSO on 6 meters once. It was a guy like 6 miles away, and that was it. I took the antenna down, and I said, all right, that's exciting. I did it. Done with that. And one BCG.
K1 KBW.
And there's Bob.
Yeah, it's Bob on the downstairs station. Can you hear me now?
Yep, just like Sprint.
Anyway, yeah, so the whole time you were talking, somebody else was doubling with you. I don't know who it was.
Them damn Powerlanders.
Net that started up while we were already talking, but no one can hear each other, so I don't know what's going on.
Well, I'm sure they can hear me, but anyway, I guess they probably didn't hear you, but I know they're hearing me. If they're not hearing me, that means they ain't even got a receiver. They running a 1N34A for a diode for a receiver.
Yeah, the suspicion is it's selective attention, you know, like what husbands do to keep the marriage together.
Yeah, I hear you. Been there, done that.
Well, what do they do different things down there to keep their marriages together. Family counseling, but like, you know, before they're married.
Right, and they're like a farmer out standing in their field looking for their wives.
Well, WX4AM.
How do you, oh God, this is bad. How do you circumcise a Powerlander?
Oh, I know that, Billy. You kick their sister in the jaw.
No! I don't get it.
Oh my God.
Oh boy.
Billy, explain it.
Well, when the sister there's got the old, you know, cleaner in her mouth there, you give her a good kick in the jaw.
Oh my God. I get it now. W2PHL.
Thanks for making me explain that.
Hey Bob, how you doing?
Yeah, pretty good. I'm on my downstairs station, so I know you hear me. I run a little bit more power than I do on the upstairs station, because I just run in the AL1200 there, and that it doesn't quite run legal limit, but close to it.
Oh yeah, that AL 1200. That's like a real penny whistle.
Well, compared to my E-rig, it's a peanut whistle. Yeah. Yep.
Oh man, yeah, I hear you.
I don't feel the need to strap tonight. Not yet. I'm just gonna run this Viking.
Yeah, I thought you were a little bit on the weak side there, Billy. You're running the Viking. What happened to your other transmitter? Did that cap finally short out?
Oh no, I haven't been on the air with that transmitter yet. Only in the dummy load. I've been using a linear amplifier, which is in the off position right now.
Oh, okay. Well, why is it in the off position?
I don't know. I don't feel like I need it yet.
Oh, okay. Well, no, actually you don't. I hear you fine.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The only reason I would turn that on is just to, make it annoying for the other QSO here, but I don't know. I'm just talking to you guys.
Oh, yeah, well, I don't have a linear down here, so I can't do that, but I can certainly do spread spectrum down here if I really get a hankering to do it.
We should all spread our carriers out a little bit, like not zero beat each other.
Well, I mean, so I can spread the audio out, like 50 or 60 kcs wide.
Yeah, but they're on this frequency, so if we all just run slightly off frequency of each other, it'll be like it'll be like the Carrier Symphony.
Okay, Andy.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you mean like that? Or like, that's even better right there. There you go. How's that? K1, KBW.
Well, we just got in here, bending up.
Yeah, you go down there. I'll be up here slightly above 85. We'll have some guys on 85. Just spread it out a little.
Yeah, they'll just keep hearing all kinds of noises in their what do you call it? The E&F won't work.
But it'll clear up on it.
Yeah, we'll just have to rename it the Heterodyne Net, KD2 AFV.
For transformers in it. Got the vote.
And a monkey puppet.
That's the story here. We don't have much, and I know.
Anyway, so how's everybody tonight? I figured I'd get on my downstairs station and cause some hate and discontent.
Doing a good job. WX4AM.
You're doing a good job.
J and Sweetwater.
Well, I ain't running full power. I can. Matter of fact, let me adjust my tutelage here. My tuner. It's not quite right. Hold on a second. Got some slight SWRs. There we go. Oh, look at that. Son of a gun. We'll all be dipped in bird shit. There we go. Now it's yay. There we go. There, that's more better.
Yeah. Let her rip.
When the band is whacked, it's time to strap.
I'm on the BC610G.
So it's the strap night. I need another beer.
As on the H.
Yeah, another adult beverage.
Okay, man. About 62 feet.
Need or want, or is there a difference?
Yeah, it's all the same.
Virgil, and I heard Bob in there, but huge signal up here tonight. Virgil, you just about got the S-meter pin, so, good.
Man, what the hell?
I'm pinning somebody's S-meter. Oh, well.
Finish up your list. I just wanted to make sure to get checked.
Well, it was a need a beer, not a want. I needed it. The cup was empty. It's a beer cup, and it was empty, and there was no beer in it, so it needed beer. So I had to walk over to my kegerator and fill it up.
Well, what's the difference between I need or I wanna?
Well, I want, if you don't have a cup with you, if you don't have a cup or a can or a glass or any type of drinking vessel, you would want a beer. But if you have a cup sitting right next to you or a glass and it's empty, well, that's a need. You can't leave that thing empty. That's just not the way you do things.
Well, that's like the dilemma: is it half full or half empty?
See, I look at it; it's refillable.
Absolutely. It's always refillable, and refillable to the max. As a matter of fact, I think I'll go and get me an adult beverage right now. I'll be right back. K1 KBW. Keep baffling Washington.
I'm drinking water.
Oh.
Over here, I'm drinking water as well.
You can't drink water?
Me and Phil are drinking water. We're like the outcasts.
Yeah, you gotta drink beer. Fish doing water?
It's Russian water. It's vodka.
Yeah, but fish fool around in water and you're drinking that stuff? Oh my, I'll be right back.
Yeah, I farted it. Do all kinds of stuff in it. It's weird.
That's a problem. I probably should be drinking water. I gotta get up early again tomorrow morning. But it's kind of hard when you look over your shoulder and you see all them taps sitting on the fridge just saying, come on, just pour a glass. It's no big deal. It's just one beer. KD2 AFB.
Well, tonight as well.
Don't you know?
Just have a bender all night. And when you're done drinking, go to work.
Yeah, and one leads to another, don't you know?
Hey, there is the old saying, you know, you can't get a hangover if you don't stop drinking.
Yeah, I got
this is true.
THs replaced in it, and that fixed my imbalance problem I had here, and I believe I've got it.
Nice one.
Find something else to do, so.
Damn monkey puppet getting loud tonight.
73 for now.
Holy smackerel, man.
That other end out there. They gotta hear it.
WA4K.
Yep. I'm sure. Well, I know they hear me. Like I said, if they don't, they're running a 1N34A diode for a receiver, and it's broken.
Clark, he's making fun of your receiver again.
Uh-oh. Those are fighting words.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that the DX160's got one of those little germanium diodes in it.
I don't know how Clark gets by with that receiver, man. Like, he's got to be hearing everything. Like, you can't even listen off frequency because there's stuff always above and below. Like, that's got to be really annoying.
Yeah, well, you just set it in the middle of the band and you can hear the whole freaking band.
On his DX160?
Yeah.
Yeah, kinda. I don't know, but he can't. He has no asymmetrical bandpass stuff, no notch filtering. Like, he just hears everything in that pass band. There's nothing you can do.
Yeah, I don't hear anything I don't want to hear on the Flex. The Flex can tune anything out except what I want to hear.
Yeah, but the nice thing is it's single conversion, you know, so there's no extra phase noise or anything. It's got a little oscillator in there that's quiet, and it sounds amazing when good signal comes through. So that's the plus side of using something like that.
Yeah, it sounds good when there's nobody else on the band but one person.
Hey, Bob, look, they packed it in.
They what?
They packed it in, the net.
Gee, I wonder why. Like I said, I know they can hear me. if they can't, you know, I don't even think they're running a 1N34A for a receiver. They got to be running a 1N914 Rad Shack diode.
Yep. Seems like they all went away. But, well, that's good. Thank you. I got my electric bill today.
Yeah, mine's up there too. So, you know, hey, when you run power, it's to be expected.
Wait, is your electric bill, does it have a comma in it?
No, actually, no, because
You know, like
Sebring is pretty efficient. I mean,
operating a lot.
you know, I'm only
Driving an hour or two at night. It's not so bad.
2 watts of drive out of the flex. Thing is doing legal limit, and it's at legal limit it's 95% efficient. So and crap.
At about 90 watts.
Perfect double.
Yeah, you strapped Bob big time.
Uh-oh. I'll have to turn this thing up. Nah.
Oh, no, it was like a dead heat down here.
You heard me?
No, actually, you didn't strap him, but both of your voices were coming through because you're on like separate, different frequencies.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, I should... Hold on a second here. Let me... There we go. Okay. 3885.00000.
Where am I? Oh, yeah, I'm not too far.
You're a little bit, tiny bit on the low side, but that's okay.
Yeah, that keeps the slop buckets away. You can't zero beat anything.
Yeah, you're like a bug light.
Billy, you're like, down here, you're like 200, what the heck was it? No, not even, like 23 hertz low. Barely anything.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm not going to touch it, but... Yeah, this power level is fine. I mean, I ran this power level for years. I just had to wait sometimes to get my words in, whereas I really don't with the other setup.
Yep, you're on 3884.7500.
Perfect.
And now I'm back up on 85.0000.
I thought about maybe using one of them fancy doctor of dental surgery VFOs in this thing, but whatever, man. I've got my tube VFO, and it's fine.
Yeah, well, I like the flex receiver. There's so much you can do with it. You know, it's just... Now I got 2 flexes. The Flexomatic 1 and the Flexomatic 2. The Flexomatic 2 upstairs is... that one's loaded, man. It's got the antenna tuner. It's got the second receiver. It's got the 2 and 440 module in it. Man, loaded.
The SDR receivers kick ass, and I make sure that I run one over here. Vintage TX Modern RX.
Yep, yeah, they're you can't beat the SDR and receive. Man, they're just the cat's ass, you know. And I've been running this flex down here in the downstairs station for quite a few years, and well, the first one I had was just a bare bones flex. This one has a second receiver and an antenna tuner in it. It doesn't have the 2 and 440 module in like the one upstairs does. And that one I just got, man, those are like dinosaur teeth. Those are hard to come by. I've only seen 2 of them. And my son Bobby in North Carolina, in Raleigh, he's got the other one. I haven't seen any other ones. But I saw that one listed online for $1,400. Matter of fact, the guy, he still got it on. I think it's on eHam. Or one of those things. He still got it listed on there, but it ain't there no more because I got it. So $1,400, it's pretty good for a loaded SDR. Bill just got another Flex 5000 because he wanted to get the second receiver so he could use the diversity reception, which you got to have the second receiver to do that with. And the one he just got, he paid $900 shipped. So he got a great deal on that. I've seen him going for like $700 and something for the Flex 5000s, bare bones, but still, you know, it's still 160 through 6. So you know, you can't at that price. You can't beat it. Why would you want to run a rice box? when you can get a Flex 5000 for like $750 or $800.
Yeah, they kick ass. I might get a Flex at some point. I don't know, or an Anon. I'd rather have an Anon, open source. But yeah, I don't know. I gotta put together a few more transmitters before I feel comfortable sitting back with a Flex or something.
I don't see anything wrong with the Anons. I mean, they sound great. The only thing is, if they break, would you send them back to India to get them fixed?
No, they have a local.
Yeah, exactly. But they're the non-communities and stuff. There's like more development, and it's open source. It's not proprietary in any way. So like you can do anything you want with it, and I like that. Even if you get zero customer service, I don't know. I think that's cool.
Well, you can with the Flex too. I'm not running Flex software. I'm running the KE9NS software. So I can do almost anything I want to do with this software.
And I guess I got to look into it more then, but I've never ran them. I don't have any experience with them, but I know in the past everybody was like, yeah, if you want to do anything like with plugins and like this or that or anything, you gotta go Anon. But I guess it's not the case anymore. I don't know. I've got a 1950s transmitter and some homebrew tube amp and other crap. I'm living in the past.
Yeah, Bob, you don't send the Anons to India. They have a facility here in the States.
Oh, they do? Oh, okay. Well, but Flex is, right out of Texas. But, and there's nothing wrong with the Anons. I think they sound great. It's just the Flexes are getting so damn cheap. It's just ridiculous. But I guess because Flex is coming out with so many other different models, which there's nothing wrong with the 5000A because you can do it, you can remote it, you can do almost anything you want to do with it. That's what's nice about running the Anons or the Flexes. You can run them remote. It's as a matter of fact, I'm going to do that with my one upstairs because that one's got the 2 and 440 module in it, and I'm going to do cross-band repeat with it where I can be out in my car on 2 meters and get into my Flex and be talking to you guys down here.
Bob, the Anons are actually a little tricky to remote into, at least the one I have, because all your actual processing power happens on the PC side. Unlike the newer Flex stuff, most of the processing happens inside the box, not on your computer. And it makes it a lot easier to remote into a Flex. And the Anon, it's a little tricky because you got to have a pretty good internet connection to handle the bandwidth of everything that's coming through on it.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know that about the Anons because I don't know a whole lot about them, but I know the Flexes, they're easy to remote, and the new Flexes are actually easier than the 5000 here. 5000 is not too bad, but the newer ones, I guess, are much better.
Yeah, from what I heard, the newer, or from what I understand, the newer Flex stuff, it basically like all the signal processing and everything gets handled inside the box itself, not on your computer. So it's actually really simple to remote into it because you're more or less just it's almost like a remote desktop thing. All you're really passing through is audio and video, not like with the Anon, you're passing through audio, video, and it's doing all the EQ stuff and everything on your computer, whereas the Flex, it does it inside the box itself. So if you want to run remote, I think Flex is the better option, but I do like my Anon. I like being able to get in there if I want to and dig around and mess with some settings. KD2 AFV.
Yeah, no, there's nothing wrong with the Anons. They sound great. Yeah, I didn't know that they were hard to remote. So, well, that's not good.
But if you depends on whether you need to remote something. I have no interest in remoting. That's why I went with the Anon. And the Anon was much less money than the Flexes. I'm talking about like the 6500 and 6700s, the current Flexes that, I'm not talking about something used. And by the way, the Anon comes, or you can buy it with or without the processor. Now, if you buy it with the processor, I don't know if that makes it more easier to remote or not. I don't know anything about it. When I bought the Anon, I got it without the processor. I'm using my computer. But, of course, I had no interest in the remote operation, but the Anon's a lot less money than the new Flexes. And also, the Anon has pure signal, which is nice for sideband. It really does help. I don't think it makes any difference on AM. But those are the basic differences. The Anons are not as easy to remote. They come with pure signal, and they're a lot less money. But they both have great receivers. They're both direct A to D, no more down converting. They're direct conversion to digital. You're not down converting to 11 megahertz or anything like that, like you did with the old Flexes. So they both have great receivers, and they both have great transmitters. The basic difference being the remote operation, pure signal, and the price. Other than that, you take your choice with it, whatever's important.
Yeah, well, I guess they all have their idiosyncrasies, and I guess they all have their good points and their bad points. So it just depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for something that remotes real easy, I guess then you which I didn't know about the Anons. I guess you don't want an Anon, you want a Flex, but if you don't care about remoting, the Anon with the pure signal and all that is, probably a better choice. But I like the Flexes. I got two of them. And, I don't think I'll ever get anything any different. At my age, I'm going to be 76 on my next birthday. So I think this receiver is above and beyond me, so I'm not even worried about it.
Oh, yeah, of course. They both have great receivers. Yeah, well, like I said, in my case, I had no interest in remote operation and saving. I don't know what the 6500s go for, or the new series. I have no idea. I guess it's what, a 64 and 6600. I think they're up around $4,000 or something like that. I really don't know. This one was the 7000 that I have was 27 or 2800. So I just had no need to spend the extra money for a function I wasn't going to use. So, it does come down to personal choice. Anyway, this is WB2RON on the side, just listening.
Okay, Ron. Well, I don't blame you. I think the new Flexes are way overpriced. I agree. They're totally, they just got out of hand. That's why I run the 5000s, because they're so cheap now. I mean, you can get a bare bones 5000, for like $700-800. I got the one upstairs. It's loaded. It's got everything that you can get. It's got a 2 and 440 module, a second receiver, the antenna tune. I got it for $1,400. So you can't beat that. I would not pay what they get for the new Flexes. I think it's ridiculous. I just don't think they're worth it. K1KBW, and I'll be right back. I'm going to get me an adult beverage.
Yeah, and as I've always said before, I know you've heard me say it, whenever anyone asks me about buying a used SDR, I always tell them Flex 5000. Don't go anywhere else. It's the best radio for the dollar out there. No question about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I just got my adult beverage here. It's only a couple of steps away from me here. So, I just got a text or something. All right, let me check it out. K1KBW.
Well, I got to jump on out of here, guys. Bob, I think I heard Ron out there. Billy, if you're still in there, I got to hop on out, get home, it's late, but I got to get some dinner. I'm starving. The couple of Pringles that I have next to me didn't quite cut it. I'll catch you guys next time I'm up here. Probably, let's see, tomorrow night's not going to be good. Probably Saturday or something like that. Whatever. I'll catch you when I'm back on the air. KD2 AFV saying 7-3.
Yeah, okay, so yeah, Pringles, yeah, they don't do it. Not substantial enough. So you got to get something with a little bit more oomph to it in your stomach. So, all right, catch you later. K1 KBW.
See you later, Toby. W2 BTK.
A nice carrier in there, but no audio.
Hey, dummy! Use a dummy low.
Why would they do that?
They don't believe in a dummy load.
He's using a dummy load. It's the antenna. A lot of people running G5 RVs might as well be running a dummy load. Come in.
They work a little bit.
I never ran one, but I know a lot of guys that are running them, and they don't get out too good.
Yeah, me too. I talk to guys on them, and they swear by them, and it's the best antenna, and I don't know. Maybe they never tried anything else.
Well, it's obvious they never tried anything else if they think it's the best antenna.
Sounded like somebody turned on a washing machine or something.
Sideband.
Yeah, I think he must have been on sideband because all I hear was whoa, 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 whoa.
Yeah, I switched over briefly. It was sideband, lowest side.
You need a carrier and an upper sideband. We'll be able to hear you.
Yeah, but that's what we get for talking on all zeros because they tune in. They think we're on sideband and we're not.
Yeah, that's why I like to be a little bit off frequency everyone else too. That's all.
Yeah, actually you're right. That's very good thinking.
Yeah, that way they zero beat somebody.